Indian ones, as India's new government forcibly annexed Hyderabad under Operation Polo. Why am I referencing so much personal, sectarian, and state violence and colonialism as I speak to what inspired this anthology of diverse voices from across the subcontinent? Simply put, those divisive forces unfortunately shaped and shifted much of the post-1947 diaspora experience, but they do not define who we are. Those hostile dynamics don't speak to the subcontinent's brilliant and beautiful diversity, often erased by colonial rulers and political parties that seek to foment division and rancor where none need exist. Like my Nani, I was born in India to a Muslim family that had been there for countless generations, and I won't let anyone take that away from me. Nor will I let any exclusionary power decide how Desi is defined, a term rooted in the word for country, nation. I believe that word should be inclusive, regardless of religion or tribe, ethnicity or class, or caste or gender. As individuals whose ancestors share a common geography, if not always a language or tradition, we get to define ourselves. That's the spirit behind this anthology. We are a people unified without borders, but filled with the songs and tales that hum in our bones. We are a global family that lives not merely in harmony, but in melody. For this anthology, Sona and I brought together a diverse group of Desi authors who represent different regions and cultures and experiences to breathe new life into stories handed down through generations, to add a unique spin to characters both familiar and new. I'm so proud of the work of our contributors, each one of them a shining jewel, not in the crown of an oppressor, but in the endless treasure trove that is the South Asian diaspora experience. Salam, Shanti, peace. Samira, Ahmed. Dear reader, as a small brown girl growing up in the heart of central New Jersey in the 1990s, I was an avid reader. I was absolutely shattered by the loss of my new friend on the way to Terabithia. I started a babysitter's club with my neighborhood pals. I reveled in creating stories out in Idlewild with Anne and Diana. I suffered through long, brutal New England winters with the March sisters. I even swooned over a pair of brooding vampire brothers from Fell's Church. But as much as I read, voraciously, delightedly, I rarely ever found myself or anyone who looked like me in the pages of my favorite books. And it was not until I was much older, in college actually, that I even realized I was missing from the stories I loved so dearly. But once I noticed it, I couldn't unsee it. Brown kids like me, the ones who wore sneakers with their salwar kameez and felt just as awkward at the 8th grade dance as they did at the Gurdwara on Sundays, were nowhere to be found on the page or the screen. And we certainly weren't out there saving the world like Ms. Marvel, who's from Jersey, like me. Nearly 20 years later, as a new parent, I was shocked to realize that things remained so much the same, and that if writers like me didn't do something about it, my own little readers would live through that same shock. The hurt that brought was deep and profound. In fact, when my co-editor Samira Ahmed and I first dreamed up this anthology 5 years ago, we could still count the number of South Asian voices in YA publishing on 2 hands. Now, with efforts from We Need Diverse Books and other organizations, things have finally begun to change. There are more of us writing and telling stories, and my kids do finally get to see reflections of themselves on the page. And in this anthology, featuring some truly amazing voices, readers will get to dive headfirst into South Asian myth and legend and lore, reimagined by writers from across the breadth and depth of the South Asian diaspora. Stories a kid like me could never even have begun to imagine growing up. I hope you love them as much as I do. Thank you for reading. Sona Charaipotra. Kiss Me Goodbye by Tracey Baptiste. A goddess should not have to do her own assassinations.